Hello, everyone. Welcome. We'll
People are still joining.
let some people still join us, but you've got David and Tom, and also Aaron. A couple just housekeeping things. We've got everybody muted just to keep sort of background noise to a minimum, but certainly we encourage people to use the chat function if they have questions. And we'll do our best to try and work through stuff.
And we're very, very happy that you all were able to.
Yeah, we appreciate it, and we're glad we get a chance just to say hello and go over some stuff that we're doing. Let's see.
And we're admitting more people. We're going to have to keep an eye on that as we go forward, just to make sure. But it's just now 2 o'clock.
It's just now 2 o'clock. So give people another minute or so, and then we can jump in and get started. Hopefully everyone is having an okay day today. I feel strange saying having a good day because it's so strange. Everybody's safe and well and doing okay, and families are okay. Basically hanging in there is kind of the thing that I keep saying.
Right. So
should we start? Let's start, and then as people join in, we'll see if we get questions. Okay. So thank you for joining us for this little. I mean, it's not really a webinar; it's more of just
a webcast.
A webcast, yeah, webcast. And Tom and Aaron and I just wanted to get together, to talk about travel and sort of what's going on right now and what we're doing. But if you don't know us, I'm David. And this is Tom. We started Huckleberry Travel several years ago. And we also have with us Aaron.
Hi. Oh, excuse me. Hi.
And Tom and I are in New York, in Brooklyn. And Aaron is our West Coast operative, as we like to call it.
Yeah, I'm out in California, in Riverside, fairly close to Los Angeles, kind of in between Los Angeles and San Diego.
So, and obviously, those of you who know us know that Huckleberry Travel is a small travel business. Even though we're nationwide at this point, we are a small business. And of course, we've been affected by the COVID-19 pandemic. And so a lot of our clients and friends and family had reached out to us and asked us about what's going on with our business, how we're doing. And so we thought we'd take this opportunity to just check in with folks. So.
Yeah. And we are getting questions regularly. I'm sure, anybody who's thinking about traveling has lots of questions. And so we just thought it would be good for us to share some of the things that we're getting asked about, share some of the things that we've been hearing from our suppliers, that we know about what's going on in the industry, and also just what's going on with our business in general.
Great. So, so if you're new to Huckleberry Travel, if you haven't worked with us before, maybe it makes sense to start talking just a little bit about kind of how we've worked with clients before. As I mentioned, we're a small business. We're now in our 4th year, and essentially what we do is we plan travel for our clients. But beyond just booking travel, we also have a really strong view that our role is to really protect our clients and advocate for them both before, during, and after their trip. So if something goes sideways while you're on your trip, we're there to step in and to intervene with the suppliers that you've chosen, use our industry connections to make sure that you're protected and safe while you're traveling. And we have some strong relationships, even though we're a small independent company. We are part of Uniglobe Travel Center, which is a larger network of independent agents like us, travel agents and travel advisors. And we're also part of a consortium called Ensemble Travel Group. And those are the avenues that we have important ways to connect with those suppliers. We do have a fee structure, which of course goes to cover a lot of the tools that we invest in for our clients. We're not just a booking engine, but we really kind of try to provide, as we said, advocacy for our clients. We're really passionate about sustainable travel. So part of our fee that we charge will go to calculating and purchasing a carbon offset for our clients' travel, because we want to make sure that those places are available for our clients in the future to visit. And of course, we're paid on a commission basis as well by the suppliers and travel providers that our clients select. But most of the time, that commission is not paid to us until our clients complete their travel. And so that's, those of you who know that about our business, the fee that we charge is a really small fee. We build that into the cost of the trip, but really, the revenue for our small business is really tied to people actually going on trips and completing their travel. So.
Yep. Yeah, and a lot of people, sort of when we're talking about how things are going, a lot of people have asked us how our business is and what we're doing. And, so I kind of just wanted to let people know that we actually have been busy this whole time. We really have made our first priority just making sure that people are safe and protected as much as possible if they are traveling or getting ready to travel. I think we've always felt that this is more about us connecting with people and helping other people connect to different places in the world. It's not, like Tom said, we're not just a booking engine. We really are trying to make sure that, people are going to have an experience that they're going to remember for the rest of their lives, and we want it to be the best it can be. So, your happiness and your safety is always more important than us just doing a booking. I think, it's important for us to let you know that we really have tried to stay on top of this since the very beginning of everything. And not just, I think everyone has stayed on top of what's going on with health concerns and how this pandemic has been progressing around the world. But, we really have focused on how it's impacted the travel industry and specifically any of our clients who have trips happening. We've helped, unfortunately, we've had to help a lot of clients get home who were traveling when everything started to break. So that really kept us busy. It was super chaotic in a lot of ways because, just trying to get through to suppliers, get through to our clients sometimes, we try to just do our best to take away stress and anxiety from people, so that, even though there was a lot going on, they weren't focused. They could focus on at least trying to have as good of a time as they could and not stressing that they were going to get stuck somewhere, unknown. We've done our best to stay informed of different, like the developments that impact travel decisions and destinations through all of our connections. We're part of different associations, ASTA, CLIA. Those are travel industry organizations that really have, they're really the go-to for us in terms of what's going on with the industry. We also have done as much as we can to stay on top of what's happening with our different suppliers in terms of how they are addressing concerns and challenges with getting people to where they need to go, what's happening with trips.
Some of those supplier policies are changing on a daily basis as well. So it's been quite a bit of effort to make sure that we're staying on top of all of that.
Yeah. And then, of course, we're getting lots of questions, just like I have a list of things. These are, in no particular order, but we get some of these probably like every day. Like, what do we do about trips that we're planning? What are we doing about a trip that I have to postpone? When can we start traveling again? You know, what will I need to do differently when I travel next? And so just trying to stay on top of those and stay connected with people, I think, has been our big priority.
Right. And I think too, like doing this today has been a big reason for us to stay in touch and to stay in communication with everybody. And, you know, the questions, probably the biggest one that we've gotten a lot is, you know, we already have this trip planned and we're anxious about it. You've been helping us all along. So what are our options? And honestly, every situation is completely different. And what we've been doing for our clients is figure out the exact options that are relevant to that trip to help them, because every trip is different. Allergies. Oh my goodness, I swear it's allergies. Figuring out the options that are relevant.
Everybody gets worried when you cough or something. Everybody gets concerned.
I know, I'm sorry. I swear it's allergies. My orange tree is in full bloom and it's total allergies. Anyway, every trip is totally different. And so it's been one of our priorities just to kind of figure out and make sure that we're staying on top of all the different pieces for all of our different clients, because, and now my eyes are watering, I'm so sorry. Because every piece is moving, and like Tom said, some stuff is changing daily. So, you know, whether your trip had 4 pieces, 5 pieces, 1 piece, it's important that we stay on top of what the different suppliers are doing. The good news is that most of our preferred suppliers have been super flexible and very generous with their policies. And that's why we prefer to work with them, because we know that they are going to take care of our clients. So our big thing has been postpone, don't cancel. Many of our preferred suppliers are offering awesome future travel credits, some of them up to 225% of what you've paid to use up to 2 years into the future. So really, really flexible and really kind of above and beyond what they probably would normally do in any other type of situation. Some of them are even offering refunds in lieu of a future credit. The only one that's been kind of a sticky wicket is the airlines, just because there's so many of them, and that is one of the places where honestly things change every single day. Whether it's a refund or future travel credit or points or miles or whatever it is. Most of them, however, are waiving change fees. They're waiving cancellation fees. Most of them are still not refunding those non-refundable tickets, but again, that changes daily. And it depends on the cancellation, who initiates that cancellation, whether it's the airline who's initiating the cancellation and actually, you know, making that flight or that particular itinerary go away, supplier that was some package, or the client. But basically, at the end of the day, the big advantage is making that decision later rather than sooner, which seems kind of counterintuitive and kind of crazy, but honestly, it's much better to let somebody else do the canceling and then let us handle the minutia and the details for you. We're seeing such added incentive and value to postponing or to waiting to let the supplier make the decision for you. It's kind of like with all the suspended cruises and things like that, like those suppliers have come back with amazing incentives for people who are willing to postpone. And even if you don't have a set date in mind, just again, that whole thing that a lot of them are offering a year, 2 years to use that future travel credit.
Absolutely. And, you know, in terms of trips that are in the future, it's important to keep in mind that we know that things are tough and difficult right now, but we're also certain that we're going to be on the other side of this eventually. And the key to recovery for the industry, and certainly for our business, is going to be when people start traveling again. And travel, unlike other industries, you know, forgive the pun, but the runway is a little bit longer for travel to take off again. But when it's safe to travel, we know that we've already been hearing from some clients that they're very eager to get out there and take advantage of those of those future travel credits that they have, and other trips that they've been planning. The obvious question is, when will it be safe to travel again? And that's impossible to say at this point. We've been paying attention to objective sources of information. We've been looking at the WHO and the CDC websites. We've been taking our cue from that. We've been on countless and endless industry training sessions and webinars to learn about the virus and the impact on our different suppliers. And we're really prioritizing getting our information from those primary sources rather than news reports that can be, hyperbolic and maybe a little bit inflammatory. But the key point is, whatever date you're comfortable with, when you are comfortable to travel, it's not too early to start thinking about it now. We have a post that just went up on our website this week about 5 things that you can do to prepare for when you do want to start traveling again. But one thing to think about is, because so many people have postponed their trips for 2020, that inventory for 2021 is going to book up really, really quickly. So if you're thinking, oh, there's no real need for me to plan my trip for next year now, I would just say it's not necessarily too early to start planning that trip now, because there are going to be a lot of people who are going to have those future travel credits that they're going to want to move forward into the next year. And the suppliers, the resorts, the hotels, the tour operators, the cruise lines, they're already reporting to us that they are starting to see things fill up for next year. So planning sooner rather than later is probably better. That having been said, oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, it's almost like the opposite of changing. Like changing, you want to wait until you have to make the change because
Exactly.
you'll have more options. For planning, you want to plan sooner because you'll have more options. So
Right.
it's just, whichever direction you're going, we want to make sure that we can give you as many options as possible.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So it's all about just talking and sharing either concerns or what you're thinking about, so that we can help figure out the right path.
And we should also, we should have said this earlier if we didn't, but if you've got, feel free to put any questions you've got into the group chat, and we'll get to those too. Wanted to let you know that we are actually planning for the future. We've got a few group departures that we're escorting later this year. We've got a trip to Greenland this summer, which we're really excited about because it's Greenland. And I see Jill's on the chat, and Jill's one of our intrepid travelers that's planning to go to Greenland with us, and we miss you too, Joe. I see that in the chat box. And we've got group space on an Alaska cruise in August, and there's still space on there. And in fact, my clients who are already booked on that have been getting some really juicy upgrades to their staterooms because of it. In December, we are taking a group on a Danube Christmas Market River Cruise, which is on Crystal Cruises, which is one of the most luxurious cruise lines imaginable. We sailed with them on the Rhine last year, and it was just fantastic. So if you're interested in that, let me know. There are some phenomenal incentives right now. And in 2021, in April, we are planning to go to the Galapagos, which is a bucket list destination for a lot of people. When we took out that space, we're essentially taking over an entire catamaran that was purpose built for the Galapagos. And we put that out to a few people in our network. It filled up really, really quickly, but we've just had a couple of people who have had to change their plans, and so we actually have a couple of spots left on that. So if you want to come on vacation with us, we would love that.
I was gonna say the best part of that is all 3 of us are gonna be there. So.
And then of course, we're more than happy to plan independent vacations as well.
Right.
A lot of people come to us for bucket list trips, but we're absolutely happy to do a simple point A to point B airfare and hotel trip, those are super easy for us to put together. And as we said before, we're not just your booking engine, we're actually your advocates when you travel. So
Right. And the thing I want to throw in there, and we'll kind of talk a little bit more about the big question when, but it's not wrong to be excited about traveling. I mean, that's I think one of the big things that we want to get across is like, we would love to still talk to you about trips, talk to you about, you know, your dream destinations, talk to you about places that you want to get to, you know, at some time in the near future, or what your next trip is going to be. Um, you know, every case is different, to what Aaron said before, and, you know, what Tom talked about. We have to figure out what the right timing is for things, but it's not wrong to get excited and start thinking about them.
maybe this is a good place to actually take a couple of,
Sure.
of questions. So I see that Michael is asking whether he should wait and react instead of being proactive. You know, and I think this goes back to what Aaron was saying. Normally you would think, okay, if I've got a trip and I know I'm going to have to cancel it as quickly as possible so that I can get that taken care of and get that squared away. And actually, that is not what we're recommending to people. If you've booked through us, we're staying on top of those supplier policies. We're going to make sure that you don't miss the deadline for canceling. But and those of you who've booked with us and have had to cancel trips, we've reached out to you to let you know, hey, there's a payment coming due. Here's what we can do. We can move your deposit to a future date to push that final payment date out. We can let them know what the latest is with the supplier policies. But generally speaking, as we get further into this, the supplier policies are getting more and more flexible and generous the closer you get to your sailing date. Because if your travel date, so you know, if you're on a cruise and the cruise line has to cancel the cruise, that's where we're seeing the 225% values that Aaron was talking about earlier. So
go ahead, Aaron.
Oh, I was going to say, I would just say from a purely investment standpoint too, like the longer that you are willing to wait, the better off you are in protecting the investment that you made in this trip or in the vacation. Just because of, you know, like Tom said too, the flexibility of the cancellation or the postponement. I mean, getting up to 2 years to make a decision. And then on top of that, getting so much back in future credit. I mean, you could end up with 2 vacations, or you could end up with a much more luxurious trip than you had even planned on.
Yeah, exactly.
And Chris and Christian, I mean, that kind of goes to the question that you were asking too. I think for mid-May, you know, it's not really clear what the landscape's going to be then, but the closer we get to your travel dates, the more options we'll have for you. So if you still want to do the trip, we can figure out whether it's, I would say we should look at it. I'm staying on top of it. I'm continuing to look at it. But as we get closer, you know, like we said, the airline policies are changing on a daily basis. The hotels are becoming more and more flexible when you get closer to the dates of travel. So we'll definitely pay attention to all of that.
Yep. And go ahead, Aaron.
No, I was gonna say no. Go ahead.
I was going to say I was going to actually go on to another question. So if you wanted to,
I was too. So
all right. Well, so I was just going to respond. I see that there was a specific question about our Greenland trip from Jill about payment dates and stuff, and that's exactly the kind of thing where we will get to the point where
I was looking at that one too.
Yeah, where that date may certainly change, and a lot of suppliers, cruises, as well as land operators have changed their typical policies that say you have to pay 90 days ahead of time to, let's move it back 30 days so it's 60 days ahead of time, and we'll reevaluate. And so the suppliers are doing everything they can to give travelers the opportunity to make informed decisions. They would rather have people know what the situation is and have a trip that they really enjoy than to feel like they're forced to cancel because of payment policies.
Or forced to go when they feel uncomfortable.
Exactly. So, so right now, I don't know if our Greenland cruise is in a window where the date has changed, but I'm guessing that there will be a flexibility for it just because of how the industry has changed over the past, you know, every week. We keep saying the same thing. Every week, things change. So we just can, as things get closer, we will continue to monitor, and we will definitely, you know, reach out to people as those dates come up to figure out what the right plans are.
Right.
Mhm. Yeah, and I was gonna tag on to that a little bit too. Like, even if the final payment date doesn't change, a lot of them, again, are offering so much more flexible cancellation policies that even if your final payment doesn't change, there are some that are now giving you like a week before cruising to cancel, or a week before the trip to cancel, or 48 hours before the trip to cancel, and still get back or get in a future travel credit 100% or more of what you've paid.
Right.
Yep.
Right. Yeah, we've had some clients who were on a couple of different. I mean, the cruises seem to be the most generous right now. Obviously, that industry's been hit pretty hard, but we've had clients who've really gotten a lot of value out of their cruises that they've had to postpone. Mark is asking whether group trips are more economical due to bulk discounts or more expensive due to additional logistics. Actually, I think group travel is always a real value. We work with a few suppliers that do really small groups. They're really focused on authentic, immersive, destination-focused itineraries, which is kind of the sweet spot for what we like to book. Sustainable travel as well, and those trips, there's always value in getting group rates. There's another travel advisor I know who makes the snarky point that if you know how much you paid for your hotel room, you paid too much, and that's because there are always these confidential negotiated wholesale rates that the group tour operators use, and we have access to some of those too, that are always going to be less than a published rate that you're going to find on the internet. And to Robbie's point, what's likely to happen to airfares when things open up again? That's a good question. I think the airfares, the airlines pricing models are really kind of coming under scrutiny in ways that they didn't before. The airlines themselves are under a lot of scrutiny. You might know that the airlines all use their record profits to invest back in their stock. They did a huge stock buyback. All of the major domestic airlines did that instead of putting that money toward comfort. And so you have to wonder about the liquidity. When airlines have such a liquidity problem that they can't lose a week's worth of business without having to engage in massive layoffs and cutbacks. That I think is it's an open question what's going to happen with airfares, but also I would say it's an open question in terms of what's going to happen with schedules, because right now most airlines have cut 80%, 90%, sometimes close to 96, 97% of their scheduled flights. And so that is it doesn't make sense to book a flight now for later in the year, because we don't know what those schedules are going to look like, and it's probably going to change anyway. Right. So
it's really, there's a sort of like chicken and the egg type of situation. I think some of that in terms of schedules and demand, I mean, that's really going to be both of those things are going to be factors in where the prices go for airlines.
And also, although we don't typically book airline only trips for people, we do have access to bulk airfares and consolidator airfares, which in many cases are lower than published air rates. So if you're considering, particularly if it's a big trip, it's an international trip, and you're looking at a premium cabin, definitely talk to us, because we can try to figure out whether or not there's a way that we can help you get as much value out of that as possible. So.
That's sort of the topic of things opening up again is a good segue to talking about when things open up again. And one of the big things that has come into the sort of circle of conversation in general for the travel industry is insurance. Many people who never were interested in travel insurance now are asking if they should get travel insurance. Would that have covered them for these trips? Should they start looking at it for the future trips? One important thing is that people should realize that in general, travel insurance, a standard policy would not cover you for canceling because you are worried about getting sick from anything, really. I mean, not even the coronavirus. It's just not really how travel insurance works. but it can't cover.
And at this point,
Now, yeah.
it's a known event, so
Yeah.
so most insurance policies have an exclusion for that.
Exactly. But travel insurance does cover a lot of other things, and that's really what's important to think about. It covers for a lot of what if scenarios, and regardless of your motivation for purchasing insurance, the truth is that having it really is the help that you might not realize that you're going to need, for something like you had to come home suddenly because of an illness of a family member, or if something gets lost or your flight's delayed or things like that. All those little things that everybody hopes doesn't happen. The insurance is there so that if something does happen, you don't have to worry about it, and you don't have to make that a stressful thing as far as finances or just logistics.
Well, and just as one example, they were my clients actually. I had some clients who were going to Southeast Asia in February when the news was coming out of China about the virus, and clients who previously had turned down insurance suddenly wanted to get insurance. And I talked to them about the fact that they couldn't just cancel because they were afraid to get the virus and expected insurance was going to cover it, particularly so close to departure. But they went ahead and bought insurance anyway. And it turned out that they needed the insurance because a family member was hospitalized and they needed to cut their trip short and come back early.
Right.
So, they said to me at the time they were going to buy insurance. Well, we didn't think we'd need it because we didn't know COVID-19 was going to happen. And I'm like, well, that's kind of the point of insurance. You buy it because you don't know that you're going to need it. But they turned out to actually need it. It really saved them a lot of money for a trip that they had to cut short and interrupt. And the insurance policies that we recommend cover so many things.
Yeah.
They cover trip interruption, lost baggage, all those things.
And there's a difference between, like, the whole concept of travel insurance is a pretty broad spectrum of things, right? So there's a difference between cancellation and just protection, right? So travel protection are all these things like lost luggage, something is stolen, my trip is interrupted, medical evacuation, all those things, versus what people generally think they are thinking of when they think of trip insurance, which is, I want to be able to get my money back, right? And that is obviously an important piece of why people are thinking about protecting their trip, but it's only one piece of it. And there are lots of different options that we think are important, whether you are worried about cancellation protection or not.
Which is, just yet another reason I think to use a travel advisor. And, I am by no means an insurance rep, but I do have connections, and we all do have connections where we could, support a three-way call, or you have more questions than we can answer. That's the kind of thing that we're here for. And, big picture, travel is more difficult than it's ever been before. And not just because of things like COVID or coronavirus. There's hurricanes and volcanoes and snowstorms and all kinds of crazy extreme weather events, politics and geopolitical tensions. When the 737 MAX got grounded and Southwest, almost their entire fleet was affected, carrier defaults from Thomas Cook to WOW Air to, I'm trying to think of the other one that was in Iceland. Which one?
Air Italy.
Yes, that's another one. And honestly, just from like a personal perspective, I kind of came into this industry because I recognized the value of having a travel advisor. I was always the book it on my own, like use Expedia and forget about it. And I was always, when I did that, disappointed with something, whether it was, the location of the hotel, or a bump in the road, or I booked something on the wrong day or whatever and messed it up. And I didn't realize until I wanted to go somewhere where it was going to be difficult, that this would be something that I needed. But it truly, I think, benefits everybody. It benefits everybody, from the person who is booking the domestic point-to-point travel to somebody who is booking longer independent travel or more specialized travel, because it's nice to have that. It's always nice to have that second set of eyes, and knowing that it's somebody like one of us who has those connections and has the ability to stay on top of that as a full-time thing, I think way out benefits not having one.
To that point, all of our clients travels in March and April, and now into May in some cases. We've got a few trips going in May and June, but everything is canceled for our clients for the most part. Global travel has ground to a halt for the time being, and we have taken on the responsibility for spending time on hold with the suppliers so that our clients don't have to, for making sure that our clients are protected, so that our clients don't have to navigate through the ins and outs of supplier policies. And I will say that with one exception, and it's a large hotel chain that I'm wrangling with right now, we've managed to preserve all of the value of all of our clients' trips. And that is hundreds of thousands of dollars of travel bookings, and our clients have not lost a penny because of that, and they also haven't spent a minute on hold.
Right.
We have.
Right.
And,
yeah. And it's also about just doing the due diligence to give people the options,
right.
because every scenario is different, and every scenario has multiple different ways to handle it, and so it's just making sure that we understand and talking to our clients about what's best. I mean,
right.
Some people want to cancel because for financial reasons they want to make sure they have the money available. Some people want to postpone because they like having that trip on the books so that they can plan for it. I mean, it really just depends on what works best for each person, each client, and each trip.
Right. And so Mark was asking a question about insurance. If a flight's delayed, causing a misconnection or missing a downline flight, and you need to get both a last-minute hotel at a place where you were thinking you were going to connect, but you missed your connection, the lost hotel nights, and does insurance cover either or both of the hotels, cabs, and more? And it really depends on the insurance policy that you get. The policies that we recommend most frequently to our clients would cover a lot of things like that. But again, if you're planning a trip and you're thinking about it, as Erin said, we can, and we've done this many times, we can get on a three-way call with our rep from Travel Guard as the policy that we recommend most frequently. And the reps there have been really, really responsive. It takes a long time to get them on the phone right now.
Yes.
But again, if there's a weather delay, and Mark correctly notes that if there's a weather delay in New York City, the airline won't typically cover a downline misconnection in another city, and that's right. That's another great reason to put a comprehensive insurance policy in place.
Right.
And let us, sit on hold for you until it's time, and then we'll bring you in.
So coming out of the crisis, I mentioned the changes in airline schedules. We're trying to pay attention to what we're going to see once we're on the other side of this. And looking on the horizon, we think that there may be some reduced capacity in the industry. It's possible that some hotel properties might close. There may be some tour operators that aren't able to continue operating after this hiatus. We are paying a lot of attention to that. We're looking at the industry trades. We're looking at the financials of the companies that we book our clients with, and as it's happened before, there are major tour operators like Cox and Kings that had been in business for more than 200 years, and they shuttered recently before the virus happened. We know that those large booking engines, Expedia is in financial trouble. Airbnb has had huge financial problems. There are some cruise lines that just got a major infusion of some money from an investment trust. We're paying attention to all of that, but Expedia has laid off an alarming percentage of their staff. Trivago is also in financial trouble. And so, we're making sure that when we book our clients, we're not using companies and booking engines that are going to leave our clients stranded. And more importantly, we're seeing how the providers that we work with have treated our clients during this difficult time. So we're, as I mentioned, we're part of a network of independent agents, and we're also part of a consortium. And together with all of those other independent travel advisors out there, we book more flights and more hotel nights than any individual traveler ever will. And even if you're a really seasoned business traveler, you might have top tier loyalty status with one hotel chain or one airline. But I can promise you that the advisors in our network do so much more volume than you do as an individual. And that actually gives us a much better opportunity to advocate for our clients when you're traveling. So moving forward, I think the most important thing is, as we started off with, our primary concern is that you are all okay and safe, and we're concerned primarily about your well-being. We will get through this. We know that travel has the power to change the world. When you explore the world, you make the world a better place, especially if you travel sustainably. And if you're thinking about those places that you want to go in the future, we would be very, very grateful for your business. And if you haven't traveled with us before, know that we will do whatever we need to do to make sure you're taken care of. And we'll be your advocate when you travel. And we are thankful that you took some time out of your Saturday to spend it with us. And we'll just let Karen and David say what they want to say.
No, I mean, everything Tom said is, what I'm feeling as well. And especially the thank you for spending part of your day with us. Oh, so who's at our doorbell? That's not
Mr. Rogers.
Wait a second.
Somebody didn't realize it was virtual.
Something's being delivered. I can't wait to see what it is. I won't touch it. No, we'll have to see what happens. But yeah, and certainly, we're here, we're working, and we're happy to help. Figure out ways to look at trips that you want to plan. So feel free or questions. You can always send us questions.
We can take any questions if people have.
Yep.
Oh, thanks, Valerie.
Thank you, Valerie.
Yeah, I think for, a big thing for me today too was just to talk and communicate and make sure people, like you said, we'll take questions anytime. I'm happy to talk. I don't have the luxury of having somebody else in my house. So if anybody needs to have conversation or talk about anything, I'm here.
Also, one thing that Aaron and David and I were talking about, and I'll just throw this out there in case anybody's interested, you can endorse the idea in the group chat. But obviously, we've been talking to a lot of our supplier reps throughout the whole crisis, and talking to them about different things that are going on, some of the incentives that they're having for booking future travel. Crystal Cruises, I mentioned we're going with Crystal on the Christmas Market River Cruise in December. Crystal is one of those travel suppliers where absolutely everything is included: your beer, your wine, your cocktails, your shore excursions, your gratuities. When we sailed on Crystal before, we actually had like $400 in onboard spending credits between the two of us, and we couldn't use it because there was nothing to spend money on except for like really ridiculously expensive bottles of wine. But
which we did to a couple.
Which we did. But Crystal right now, for example, has a really great promotion where you can put a reduced deposit down on any of their sailings, ocean or river, any place else in the world that they travel, and you'll automatically get a 2.5% reduction off of the rates. It's combinable with any promotion that they've got, and and you don't have to pick your sailing. You can just kick it down the road until you find a date that you're ready to go, and then take that amazing river cruise that you want. You can use it on our Christmas market cruise if you want. So it's things like that. And so if it's useful to people, one thing we could do is maybe set up another one of these or a series of these where we could invite some of our reps from the different travel suppliers that we use
Yeah.
most frequently. We were just on a call. The three of us were just on a call yesterday with a company that does really phenomenal Southeast Asia trips, China, Japan, and Malaysia, Borneo. She was talking about all the different things that they've got going on throughout Asia. And it was really exciting to us, and we'd love to kind of put you in touch directly with some of the suppliers that we use to hear about some of those things.
It's exciting for us to talk about travel and to hear about travel, and just not even with any sort of specific target date or anything like that in mind, but just like the idea. I mean, it's kind of helping to get sort of excited about it again, because we will be traveling again. And so, you know, sort of rethinking our lists and making our sort of go-to checklist of where we want to hit has been fun. We've actually been watching a lot of, as everyone has, I'm sure, TV and movies, and somehow in the past few days we've seen 2 different versions of Murder on the Orient Express. We also saw From Russia with Love, which was also had scenes on the Orient Express, and so that's back on my list in a big way right now.
Well, and actually, we've got a supplier that's relatively new in our network, and they do some of those iconic rail journeys. We've like the national parks. We think are going to be really big once we're on the other side of this, and this particular supplier. They're the only ones who have access to book the lodges within national parks up to 24 months in advance. So that's a really exciting partnership that we're thrilled about. Mark is asking, what's a good starter trip for someone who's never been on a cruise and is not sure if it's for them? We've got lots of, so there are a couple of things I would say about that. One is we have partnerships with cruise lines of every shape and size. A lot of times people think about the big cruise lines with water slides and belly flop competitions by the pool and go-karts. And if that's your speed, we can definitely make that happen for you. But most of the cruises that we book are smaller ships, more destination focused. But there are some options in the premium luxury expedition cruise lines where the ships are smaller, they're more authentic. River cruises are a great option as well. Robbie mentions that's fantastic. But if you're thinking about an ocean cruise, I know you're in New York, so one great example might be a short cruise that leaves from New York, maybe to Bermuda and back. And we could talk to you to try to figure out which of the cruise partners that we work with is going to be a good fit for the kind of travel that you like to do. And we'd be talk to you about that. But river cruises are, we went on our first river cruise last year, and it was a game changer for us.
It really was.
I want to move on to a river cruise and stay there. So, great.
Let's see if there's any. Yes,
and
Jill, we agree.
Jill agrees. River cruises are the best.
Let's see if there are any other.
So I'm not seeing a whole bunch of other questions, but sustainable travel. So we can definitely talk about sustainable travel. I mentioned earlier that we use part of our fee to calculate and purchase a carbon offset for our clients' travels. And that's because we're really passionate about the environment. We also have a view of sustainability that it's not just about the environment, it's also about traveling that is culturally sustainable and economically sustainable. One of our favorite travel providers that we partner with is a company called G Adventures, and they have a foundation that actually funds development projects around the world to elevate the communities that they visit. And almost every one of their itineraries includes a visit to a project that they sponsor. When we were traveling with them in Morocco, we went to a community restaurant that was run by a woman who also ran a literacy project. So she used her restaurant to train women, single and divorced women in Morocco who don't have a lot of employment opportunities, to give them a chance to develop some skills that they could make them employable. The same thing with when I was in Peru with them, went to visit a women's weaving collective that was up in the mountains, and no other tour company goes that far up into the Andes to go to this remote village, but to talk to the people who live in that village, who talk about how, because G Adventures brings tourists to their village to talk to them about their way of life, that they have this added source of income for their community that gives their children a better education, because they have to walk extra far to get to school. They can buy computers for their town. And actually there was an agricultural project in that same location, and it turned out that this little village up in the mountains in Peru is a seed bank, one of 3 seed banks in the world for potatoes. And they had this whole demonstration of like a zillion different kinds of potatoes that they grow, all shapes and sizes and colors. It was fascinating. And so basically, you know, if there's a global famine, this tiny village in the middle of the Andes is going to be partially responsible for making sure that we all have food to eat in the new reality. So and it's not necessarily volunteerism, Mark. It's really more about making sure that the money that you spend on the trip goes back into the communities that you're visiting, and making sure that when you're staying in hotels, that you're kind of avoiding the big Western hotel chains, and instead looking at locally owned and operated hotel properties and those types of things. So economic sustainability, things that are sensitive to the culture of the community. G Adventures has a great animal welfare policy, so that the animals that you're interacting with are protected. And again, their projects really do. They have clean cook stove projects in Africa. They have women who are trained for tourism jobs, who've been rescued from sex trafficking. It's just a phenomenal company, and we'd love to talk to you about them at some point if you're interested in traveling with them. So, okay. So I'm not seeing other questions, but we can do volunteerism too, by the way. If you're into that, like, I got a great company for that I'd love to connect you with as well. But more about that maybe in another call. So maybe we'll do, maybe we should get somebody from G Adventures on one of these calls in the future and talk to them. Okay, excellent.
All right.
So
great seeing you, Jill.
Thanks so much, everyone.
Thanks everybody
for joining us.
who joined us today. Thank you. Seeing things come in. We thank you for being with us on a Saturday afternoon. If you forgot what day it is, it's Saturday.
It's Saturday. Tomorrow's Easter. Stay home.
Yeah, stay home, stay safe, but let us know if you want to talk travel. We're here.
Yep. All right. Thanks, everyone.
All right. Talk to you all. Take
Bye-bye.
care. Bye.
Bye.